gonna try this for a third time. Apparently technology is not going to be my friend today. But this morning, and it is still morning, I've still got like an hour and 20 minutes my time. It's Alberta Mountain Standard Time. But this morning, I wanted to talk with you guys about some of my pressing techniques that I use for professional looking bags. You have done such an incredible job on the George Carryall and the George handbags. There have been some amazing bags posted there. And your collages of Layla, Goldfinch, Inner Circle, George, holy cow, you blow me away. I think there was only one actual club where I made all the bags all in time, and you guys are just awesome. It's been incredible. The embroidery designs I've seen on the fronts of bags have been awesome. The applique, the piecing, the color combinations that you guys are coming up with. Love it. Love it. But today I wanted to talk about that professional finish on our bags, the final step, and this can have a huge impact on the final look and presentation of our bags. So today we're going to talk about ironing techniques, and really not my favorite thing. Who likes to stand at an ironing board? I don't think I've ever used my iron. No, I don't think I can say that. I know I have never used my iron on clothing, only on bags, quilts, sewing. So I am going to point you down, and we're going to talk about a couple of products. Actually, before I point you down, I'm going to talk about a couple of those products right up front. Favorite bag making pressing tool, oven mitt. This is actually my pressing mitt. It is not my oven mitt. This mitt would never fit my husband's hand. So this is what I use during pressing, and I'll show you how I use that. I don't have a pressing ham, which is a very classic tool to use when ironing your bags. The pressing hams are generally, they can come as a long tube style one or funky shapes, and the funky shapes on them are specifically to let them sit inside the curve of a sewn project, and then you can press against them, press your seams open, that kind of thing. They're filled with, I want to say they're filled with sawdust, really, really well packed sawdust. I'm not sure what else they're filled with, but pressing hams, super handy. This is a misting bottle. Find the pointer. It just mists, okay? I have water in here, so no, I did not just spray Lincoln, my dog, with something funky. That was just water, okay? So I keep water in there. Water allows me to get some nice crisp edges. The other thing I use is Mary Ellen's Best Press. Okay, that's one of my favorite products. It's a starch and sizing spray. Okay, there is a Best Press 2 out there. From what I hear, Best Press 2 does have more starch in it, but I actually use this on the lining of my bags after I'm finished. As a sizing spray, it actually helps the fabrics, if I haven't washed them and used this throughout construction, it helps them shrink up just a little bit, because we all love that nice snug lining. So I use Mary Ellen's Best Press. Again, you can get number 2. There are other brands out there. My mom has a different brand that she absolutely loves to use. And I want to say it's a precision piecing product that she actually uses. Another product that I don't have is just a starch. Starch sprays on the outsides of your bags to get that nice firm finish. Just another item. And then something I always have at my ironing board is dryer sheets. Not for finished pressing, but for pressing my interfacing onto my fabrics. I'm really not that great at cutting things perfectly, so I will use a dryer sheet to get interfacing glue off of my iron and clean my iron. So keep the iron hot, give it a quick press on a dryer sheet. For about the next 10 times you iron, you are going to find that there is a nice fresh dryer sheet smell coming off of your ironing board. But it takes the glues right off for me. And then I have 2 irons that I use regularly. One is a cordless. It's a Panasonic. It's got a pointy at top and bottom, which means that it doesn't matter which end I'm using, I can get into all my corners. It has a base that it sits on, and that's where it gets the heat from. So long as it is off the base, it is not heating, but it does hold heat really well. And I do have the scorch marks on my ironing board to prove that it gets really hot. I will typically use my iron, that one specifically, at a medium level instead of a high level. It came from Costco. It was a gift to me from my mom, but I do know that Costco carries them. It's a Panasonic, and then there's a whole bunch of letters and numbers. I can get you that if you're interested. The other item I use every time I work on a finished project is my little tiny Go iron. I don't have it plugged in today. We're just going to use it for showing you how I use it, but that means I can touch it. My little Go iron is the travel iron that I take with me everywhere. So if I go on a retreat or anywhere really that I sew, I go out to the camper, this is the iron I'll take. It's really handy. The cord just wraps right up around the handle. So it's really super handy. It does have steam, so I fill it up with water right here. Normally it's empty because I do tend to travel with it a little bit. It has the dial for your heat settings, and then steam or no steam. Nice and handy. And it gets super, super hot and has a super powerful steam in it. So it's really fantastic. I know I got mine from Purple Cat's Quilting. I don't know where else you get them. You probably find them on Amazon even. It is a Go iron. Go iron. I love it. And this gets right into every single corner on every bag that you could imagine. So, my primary tools. Ironing, not for the faint of heart. We've got tools. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to tilt you down and show you some of the things that I do, especially on my George bags. But I also have another little project here just to show you how I get my ironing done. My pressing. All right. Oh, that is the other thing I have. I have a wool pressing mat that I absolutely love. Okay. It holds the heat really, really well. There we go. It holds the heat really, really well, which means that there's a little warmth underneath as well as warmth on top. I do not normally press on my cutting mat. I do know you're all freaking out right now saying, oh my God, she's going to put heat on her cutting mat. This wool mat does prevent a lot of heat from going through. It will not prevent all the heat from going through. Oh, thank you, Verna. Yes, Emmeline Bags carries the little Go irons. Perfect. So yes, I don't normally iron right here, but my ironing board is a little terrifying right now, so I'm not going to show you there. And for the little bit I'm going to show you today, it is not going to damage my cutting mat underneath. If, however, you have a wool pressing mat that you like to use, make sure that it is on a surface that is a nice finished surface, because the heat and moisture can go through your mat. So just be aware. I did damage my dining room table. Okay, one of the ways I've damaged my dining room table was by pressing through something that I thought the heat wasn't going to go through. All right, so let's do this. Let's set these two aside for a moment, and let's grab George. Okay, so this is the handbag. She kind of fills the whole screen for you. I have done pressing on George already. However, I want to walk you through the steps I take to get a nicely pressed George. Okay. Anytime I'm pressing a finished bag, I start on the inside. And the reason is because the outside is going to want more attention at the end. So if I accidentally put a crease into the outside by pressing on the inside, it's going to be no big deal because I'm coming to the outside after. Some things to watch out for when pressing your bags. Magnetic snaps. Okay? Heat can demagnetize your magnetic snaps. So just be very conscious of them, very aware of where they are. If you used plastic teeth on your zipper, not nylon, but plastic, you know those big, they're Vislon is actually what they're called. But if you use plastic teeth, don't go near an iron. Don't even think about going near an iron. They're gonna melt, just from thinking about it. All right. I always start again on the inside. I make sure everything is laying, ooh, we've got a pen in there. Huh. I always make sure everything is laying flat, pull my handle up out of the way, okay? And then this is where I start with my cordless iron, okay? It fits right inside. I can poke with the corner right down into those ends, those corners of my bag, and I can push them out really, really well, okay? So even up here, I can push it out really well. Now you'll see I am also pressing on top of my nylon coil zipper. I have yet to experience a nylon coil zipper melt on me. I'm not saying it won't happen. I haven't experienced it. Okay? The other thing in these little Georges is when you get into the bottom of that gusset, that's where these little GoPro irons are for. See how that, I'm not sure if I can make you see this. See how well he fits right along that gusset? Okay? Super handy. He can push out those corners really, really well. He fits right into those edges really, really well. Okay? I mentioned it before and I'm going to mention it again. I'll use my sizing spray, which is Best Press, right along that lining. It's going to do that little bit of sizing for me where it's just going to snug up the fabric. It also has a little bit of starch, so it gets nice and cozy in there, okay? And before I ever get worried about a lining being too big in a bag, that's the first thing I'll do, okay? I'll see how much is in there, and if it can be scrunched up a little bit just by that sizing, it works for me. Now, I'm gonna pretend we went through all of that on the inside, okay? So I'll use my little one along that gusset. I'll use my big one on the sides, and I will push it right into every one of these corners, okay? And George has enough of those corners, those curvy corners, to push my iron right up into them, push them right out, okay? Then we get to the outside, okay? And the outside, of course, is the more challenging, and that's where your oven mitt, or my pressing mitt in this case, or your pressing ham comes into play. So, slip my hand right inside, okay? Snugged right up to that corner, and now I can press really well along those edges, all the way down. And my hand's not burning because I have a really good oven mitt in there. Okay. So that's going to get out most of those wrinkles, but something else I like to do with my pressing is I like to get crisp edges. Okay. And what I mean by that is this, right here. In George, the firm base that we had is not in our seam allowance. So we already have a nice edge right there, but during pressing, if you crimp this down a little bit, flatten it against your ironing board, you can press that a little bit more to get a nice crisp edge. And this is where I'll use my mister, okay? I actually use this a lot in my quilting as well as on here. When I mist right along that edge, it's going to give me some very specific steam in the area I sprayed. And it's going to give me a nice crisp edge. And because it's water, I don't care what surface I'm on, and it doesn't matter what bag I'm on, but I've got this nice crisp edge now. Gonna grab that oven mitt again. I've just got some moisture still there, so let's get rid of some of that. Okay. So I think I've gone over this George really well. Even at the top, I'll do that same technique. Right along that top edge, I'll press that down, making sure I've got it laid nicely, and I'll spritz that with water, and then I'll do that little bit of pressing there again to make sure I've got those nice crisp edges. Okay. Hot iron, I don't use steam. The reason I don't use steam is I burn myself every time I use steam. It's kind of like cutting myself every time I use scissors or getting glue stuck to all my fingers. I'm really a wreck. Should have failed kindergarten. All right, I have a little bit more here I want to show you, but it's not so much on George as just a generic pressing technique. This is the Emmeline Bags Retreat bag without a frame. Okay, and it has box corners. Okay, so box corners mean we want this beautiful rectangle finish on it. This is a well-used, well-loved retreat bag. I use this for all my sewing tools and stuff. But it's a perfect example of how to get those nice edges. So we have that seam right along the bottom corner there. Okay, and that's where the side seam came down and the bottom seam is there, and so it all lines up really nicely there. What we're going to do is we're going to flatten out that seam, press it really flat, and give it a press. Don't get your fingers. Okay. We're going to do that on the other end as well. You can already see, gives it a beautiful crisp edge. Flip it around. We're going to do that on this end as well. Again, I could use my best press or I could use my water on this to give that very distinct steam spot. Okay. So now we have two very nice crisp edges, and we're going to then pull these corners, okay, just like so. I'm going to flip this around. Okay, so we have those corners, and I'm going to press it down against my ironing board so that I can get a beautiful crisp line along that corner of the base. My iron seems to be just the perfect length. It goes from corner to corner, so. And then we'll do that with these other corners as well. So I'll just flip the body of the bag out of the way. I've got that base sitting up. Okay. So you know that perma crease that comes down the very center of the front of the men's dress pant? That's essentially what we're trying to build here. So now, if you take a look at how my base sits, it has a beautiful crisp edges. Okay? And that gives me a nice edge. Now on the retreat bag, you want to see how it's going to sit. Because it sits this way, what I would normally do is I would then form a crease from corner to corner. So from that bottom corner up to this corner. Okay. So let's put a crease in there because that's how it's going to sit. This one does not have a frame. This is also really awesome for any luggage cubes you're making out of fabric, or your little boxy cubes that you set on your table. Okay, so I've got a crisp seam there. So let's do the same thing for the other side of that end. I am making sure that my lining's pushed right into that as well. that right down. Because you want to make sure your lining sits perfectly in there. And again, this is just for that nice professional finish. Crisp lines. All right. Now, you can see how it sits so crisply. Okay, now, if you compare that to the other end, where I haven't done any pressing, it's very different. Okay. So just some of those tips and tricks. There we are. So yeah, just some of those tips and tricks to how I get my nice crisp corners, how I get my nice crisp edges. I do generally spend quite a bit of time at the ironing board after I make a bag. You should have seen me with that big George afterwards. We kind of hung out for a little bit at the ironing board. But you know what's great about these really big bags? Your irons always fit right inside. So they're really easy to do some ironing on. And again, use the tools you've got. So best press or a sizing alternative for your lining. It snugs up the lining a little bit. I use water in a spray bottle so that I have very distinct pointed steaming. You can use a starch spray for the exterior of your bag just to keep it firm and keep it structured. And then my favorite tool is that oven mitt. I find it just allows me to manipulate my bag and get those nice crisp edges exactly where I need them to be. So if you have any questions, toss them in the comments, and happy sewing, guys. It's Sunday. Enjoy your sewing day, and if you have sun, get out there. I have sun. I'm gonna go grab like a coffee and a book and maybe sit out there in that sun. So have a great day, everyone.